motivation, which was desire. Seeking personal gratifications through success, wealth, and pleasure. That's probably most of like, I don't know, any teenage boy, you know, who's just like watching the media and seeing what their friends do. They're driven by desire. Girls, money, cool toys, results, success. I don't want to generalize it, but that's what I saw a lot of growing
Sure,
up, right?
me too.
Now, the last two, the third and fourth, are duty and love. Duty is motivated by gratitude, responsibility, and the desire to do the right thing. And love is compelled by care for others and the urge to help them. And I feel like in the last 7 years, it's been more duty and love. It's more like mission focused. And there's an amount of happiness that I've never felt before until I reached practicing duty and love. And I remember I never was able to fall asleep at night until about 7, 8 years ago without an hour and a half of just anxious, anxiety, stress, concern, worry. And when I shifted from seeking personal gratifications to being motivated by a mission and love and gratitude, it's like I started to fall asleep within minutes. And it's crazy. But why do we live in this fear motivation and desire motivation when it only causes us a lot of pain?
Great question, man. Thanks for sharing your journey too, because I mean, everyone, as you can see, Lewis is already thinking like a monk. So it's great. I love it. But it's so yeah, great question. The challenge is that we think things come with emotions.
Feelings.
We think things come with feelings and emotions, and guess what they do? So if you chase money,
But they're meant for a moment, right? Or they
I don't think they even do. It's such a false sense of feeling. I don't. Maybe for a moment, but it's so short-lived that it's not even worth counting almost. So it's like when you think that I'm chasing money, guess what? You will get money.
Yep.
And that's great. Money is really important, and money is a really important resource. But guess what? Money's not now going to fill that gap, that void, that feeling, that emotion that you're missing in your life.
What are most people missing?
We're missing a deep sense of love. I think the biggest need in the world, as we've heard many times before from all the ancient texts, they summarize it like this: to love and be loved. Like that is the need of humanity, to love and be loved. And when we don't experience that, we then start looking for status. We then start looking for money. Then we then start looking for recognition.
Just to help us give the feeling of false sense of love.
Correct. And the challenge is because most of us didn't experience that from our parents. And this is the key thing. What we crave in life is what we didn't get from our parents. What our parents did give us is what we continue to crave. What they didn't give us is what we continue to crave. So you'll find that most people's love languages that they chase are things that their parents didn't give them. So if their parents didn't give them time, they now crave everyone's time. If their parents didn't give them gifts, they crave gifts. If their parents didn't give them acts of service, they're craving those acts of service. So it's because of our childhood. And if we don't learn to process all of that experience, which most people never get the time to do, and I empathize with that because I had to go through that. I've seen me repeating my parents' patterns.
What was the thing you were craving?
So I would crave, a big thing for me was I would crave surprises and gifts because...
That's your thing.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Still is your thing.
It's still my thing.
Yeah.
And I...
Did your parents not do that for you?
No, they did. My mom did a lot of it.
That's why you still crave it.
Correct. So my mom would always, every year on my birthday, she'd always surprise me with the one thing I wanted. And I wasn't spoiled growing up. I didn't have a lot growing up. But she would get that one thing, whether it was like a Power Rangers toy or whether it was whatever it was, you know, something, you know. Yeah, the thing is, you wanted the kids, right? And she would always surprise me with that. And that became so deep-rooted. Now, I'll give you an example. When I then married my wife, you just expect people to know that.
That they're going to do the same thing.
Totally. And so
She
now...
didn't do that.
No, because I'm expecting my wife to be like my mom. In the sense of, I expect her to surprise or show me love in the same way. And she doesn't know that. She's not mind reader. I can't expect her to know that. So it took communication. It took time for me to explain that. So I think that's where it stems from. That desire, it doesn't come from any... You can say it comes from society and education. Of course it does. But I think the deepest place it comes is what your parents did or didn't give you.
What did you notice about the outside world maybe a year or 2 years into the flow of your learning, you know, about yourself and about the wisdom and the philosophy of being a monk, what did you start to notice the most? Most common things of when you're just talking to people or just walking down the street and just being aware of what was happening.
Absolutely. It's actually, I've been quoting the Gita a lot, the Bhagavad Gita, but I'll quote a modern day, I guess somewhat modern day philosopher, because I think this encapsulated it perfectly. He said that, this is Cooley, a philosopher, writer, he said, today I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. Right? And I always feel that blows my mind every time I say it. I'm not what I think I am. I'm not what you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. So we live in this perception of ourselves. So we've all seen the movie Inception. Imagine you get lost so far into someone's perception, and that's your perception. So if I think Lewis thinks Jay's good, then I feel good. But if I think Lewis thinks Jay's not good, then I don't feel good. And we live like that today. If I think someone thinks I'm confident, I feel confident. But if I think someone thinks I'm not confident, then I don't feel confident. And that's what I noticed when I lived as a monk. That people were so far removed from their own understanding of themselves that they were either lost living a life they didn't want to, lost living up to someone else's expectations, or lost becoming someone to impress someone else. And so people were their real identity is almost buried under 6 feet of multiple identities they've created. And that's what I started to notice. We have a social media identity, we have a LinkedIn identity, we have a Twitter identity, we have a Facebook identity. Then we have an identity we are to our boss. Then we have an identity we are with our Friday night friends. Then we have an identity we are to our Sunday people. And we just created all of these identities. And if you ask people, who are you? We struggle to answer that question. And so as a monk, you're just taught to dig deeper beyond all those identities and kind of, again, bring out yourself rather than define yourself. So that was what I noticed. I just started to notice that people had a big lack of self-actualization. They were very disconnected from what they wanted, needed, and understood about themselves. And most people's identities were crafted by the reflection in this mirror of their mom, dad, friends, boss, partner, whatever it may be.
Right. How do we start to tap into self-realization better?
Yeah,
How do we learn that about ourselves?
So I think it starts even at a physical level. I'll give a basic example at a physical level. Anyone who's a physical fitness or health coach will know that different bodies need different food, different sleep, different fluids. We don't all need the same thing. Me and you with different body types can't do the same workout. Right? We can't. I would die if I tried to lift what you lift. It just wouldn't work.
And I would die trying to sleep on the floor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but exactly, right? And that's the point. Our bodies have different tolerances in different things. That's self-awareness at a physical level already. So now what I realized by living as a monk is I can't survive off of 4 hours sleep a night. Like I realized that about my body.
When you were a monk?
Kind of when I was leaving and when I kind of came back to my real bed and I was just like, oh, I like this. This is this is good.
Yeah.
Right? And I kind of came to that realization that I'm not able to function as effectively as I want to. I could when I was a monk because we meditated so much.
That just got you to a higher vibration.
Exactly. So now I meditate 2 hours a day. Then I used to meditate 4, 6 hours a day, plus the collective, plus the environment. All of that helps. So now that I don't have that, I can't. But if I have that, I can.
Could have just slept for those 4 hours and been better.
yeah, exactly. So the point I'm making is that's physical self-awareness. We know our limits, we know what we can do, we know what we can't do, we know what our challenge is. On a mental level, what's self-awareness? Knowing what type of people I like to be with. Knowing who helps me grow and who drains me. That's mental self-awareness. So self-awareness at every level, and then we go into the spiritual consciousness level. That's disconnecting from all these identities and understanding the identity that we are wired for generosity. And we're wired to serve. And only in service can we be happy. And that's us on a consciousness level. That's the identity of consciousness. Like water is wet, the sun is heating and light. Consciousness is service. Like that's how it fits.
Why are we wired for that?
We're wired for that because all of us as consciousness have been designed, and we see it since like even kids. Like I was giving this example of this beautiful, and you may have seen it. It went viral on Instagram. It was this little girl, probably about 2 years old, watching a cartoon, and she takes a handkerchief, and the cartoon character's crying, and she goes up to the television and she tries to wipe it up, right? And it's incredible because this girl's 2 years old and she thinks this cartoon character animal's crying, and she gets a real tissue and tries to wipe it on the TV. Obviously, it doesn't work. And there's another one that I saw with this statue of this rabbit, and there's like 4 rabbits, and one rabbit's like falling off the end, and this little boy is trying to push the rabbit up, but it's a stone rabbit, it's just a statue, but he's trying to help it back up. So we see, and there was a great article in Wired about this, about how we're wired for generosity. Our brain is happier in service. Why are we that way? I'm not fully sure. But what I do know from my experience as a monk, or what I can verify, is that we've been created to connect and serve. Like, we've been created to connect and serve.
I don't know why.
I can give you my opinion in the Vedic opinion. I can't tell you why for everyone. The reason is, the main deep, or the main Vedic reason is that we've been created that way because that's our nature and that's what makes us most happy. Because this whole world is almost a school and education system to make us realize that one truth. To make us realize that one truth. And we see that when we're serving, when we're doing that, we feel genuine happiness. But when we're trying to gain and greed and power and strength, we even feel empty as it slips through our fingers. So the why is because that allows us to connect to our deepest self, the happiest self that we have. And modern studies have shown that. So Michael Norton at Cambridge University, he did a study where they gave people $5, $10, $20 to spend on themselves. Have you seen this?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then they spend $5, $10, $20 on others. So people spend $5, $10, $20 on makeup, Starbucks, and normal stuff, right? That was the three makeup, Starbucks, and then something else. I can't remember. And then people who spend on other people, they also bought the same stuff. Starbucks was still in there, and they're buying all this stuff. What they found is that when people self-assess their happiness before and after, without knowing about this A/B test, people who spend the money on themselves didn't feel any happier or any less happier. But the people that spent on others felt 10 to 20% happier. And then he went and tried this out. This was a college in the United States. They then went and did it in Africa. They did it all over the world. And the stats and the patterns are the same. That we're wired for generosity. We're wired to serve. To make us realize that that's our real nature. That's our greatest self-awareness. Right? So that's the Vedic opinion. That's why you had to probe me to go to why it is. I know why it is, but I want to give people an answer that I feel they can connect with.
So, what was one of the greatest lessons you learned in those 3 years?
Do you want me to share the one I shared before, or share another one?
Share another one.
Yeah, okay, I'll share another one. This is probably one of my favorite things, and it's because this was what I learned on my first day of monk school. So if you think about what you learned on the first day of school, when you were 3 or 4, if you remember what it was. Alphabet, exactly. Alphabet, the numbers, right? 1 to 10, ABC, the 26 letters of the alphabet. So I remember my first day of monk school. I just shaved my head. I'm now wearing robes. I still look like I'm from London. Like I can't get away with it. I'm walking around and I notice this monk who's teaching. This monk's 10 years old, and he's teaching a group of 5-year-old monks. Right? And I see him teaching. He looks like an adult. Like, wow. You know, his ability to like teach these 5-year-olds and conduct himself, and he's got this great aura about him. And so I'm kind of eavesdropping on his class. I can't obviously go and sit with a bunch of 5-year-olds, even though I really want to, because I'm like, I feel like a 5-year-old next to that 10-year-old. And I went up to him and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, well, we just taught their first class ever." And I said, "Oh, cool." And he said, "Well, what did you learn in your first class at school?" And I said, "Oh, well, I learned the alphabet and numbers." And I said, "Well, what did they learn?" He said, "Do you want to know what they learned in their first day of school?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "The first thing that we teach them, the first thing you learn at monk school is learning how to breathe." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because we're taught that the only thing that stays with you from the moment you're born to the moment you die is your breath. All your friends, family, the country you live in, all of that's going to change. The only thing that doesn't change, that stays with you from the moment you're born to the moment you die, is your breath." And he said, "Notice, when you get stressed, what changes? Your breath. When you get angry, what changes? Your breath. When you're sad, what changes your breath. When you're happy, what changes your breath. Every emotion is experienced with the change of the breath. So he said, when you learn how to navigate and manage your breath, you can actually navigate any situation in life. And I was just blown away. I was just like, wow. And then I remember researching it and noticing how athletes were taught how to breathe, musicians, singers, especially those who play wind instruments, who have to reach really high notes. They're all trained how to breathe because they have to use their breath in challenging, stressful, pressureful situations. That's like, so are all of us. You've got to go on stage in front of 10,000 people. You've got to go do a concert. You just lost a deal or a contract. Our breath changes in all those scenarios, yet we don't know how to use our breath to change our life. And so for me, that was a huge learning point where I just thought, wow, that's what you're taught. The priority is on the root of things, not the leaf or the symptoms. And that's the biggest thing about living as a monk. You're not dealing with your challenges at symptomatic level. You're dealing with it at root level. Right? People say, oh, if you're stressed out, just take a stress pill. If you're stressed out, just go to get a massage. If you're stressed out, just relax, watch Netflix and chill. But all that's doing is pacifying you, escape for that hour, 2 hours, maybe a week. But going to the root of it and learning how to change your breath means you can manage any situation in life. And that principle, that's an example of the principle which is so much deeper. That always go to the root. It will take longer, but it will last longer. Right? If you go to the root, it takes longer, but it lasts longer. But if you go for the symptom, you get it quick, and it never lasts. And we don't know that. Yeah. So that was the deepest principle I learned as a monk. You always go to the root. Cut down the root of that weed in your heart. Cut down the root of that weed in your mind. Don't just let it grow and kind of water a little bit and snip, cut it a bit. Just really go to the root and just knock it out there. Just get rid of it. Get a big axe and cut it down.
Wow. Are there any weeds in your life right now?
Loads.
In your heart or in your mind?
Always. My daily practice is to refine my intention. The biggest weeds that we all get is on our intention. So when I say intention, I mean my current intention is to use everything I've been given, everything that I have in the service of others. So I want to use the following that I have to help people. I want to use the money that I have to help people. I want to use the network that I have to help people. But every day, that intention, which is a beautiful little plant that's growing, gets weeds around it. No, do it for the money, do that thing, right?
Do it for the fame.
Just do it for the fame, do it for the followers, do it for this, all these weeds.